Good morning, everyone. How are y'all today?
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Hi.
We'll start by introducing ourselves. My name is Eric Felly. I do the walkthroughs here and participate in a lot of seminars. I guess my title here would be an RV specialist. And I'll hand it over to Brian.
Brian Pickman, I'm in sales.
I'm Ben in service writer.
Matthew Bowes, I'm in parks.
So we've got somebody from each department here today, and this seminar is questions and answers. So with that being said, let's get this started. And who has the first question?
Okay, seminar's over. We appreciate you guys coming in.
That's the easiest one yet?
Yeah.
Honestly, guys, this is normally a seminar where we let you guys kind of take over and ask us questions you have on anything. So we're not really prepared to talk about a whole lot. Kind of hoping you guys have thoughts.
Any questions?
Who do you think is the best looking parts guy?
Okay.
That would be the first question. Craig would be the other guy. He's not here today. He's in Indianapolis playing softball with his kids. But I know who's the smartest. I just wanted your opinion on who's best looking.
Well, I vote Matt, so.
This seminar we started because actually at our camp outs, we used to do a question and answer, and of course, pre-corona, at the camp out it would be a crowd of 100 or so, or more a lot of times. And we get bombarded with questions in a setting like that. And here at work, pretty much all day long too. We're dealing with problems, questions, how to do this, how do I set my camper up, how do I pull my camper properly, things like that.
Why does my air conditioner not work when I'm not plugged in? That's a question we get all the time. You wouldn't believe how many people think that it'll work off that 12-volt battery, and that's not me calling anybody stupid, it's just they're not experienced. And most of you guys I see at all the seminars, so you kind of know what's going on, but that's what these seminars are designed for, is to educate the people that don't know and to kind of back up what you do know. So
I have one. I thought of one. When you're parked, you're at your campsite, you're ready to stay for a while. I know you don't want to overburden your electricity, because I came to the electricity seminar. Is all the things that run off of propane, refrigerator, water heater, whatever it might be, when you're parked, do you run as much off propane as you can in order to save electricity?
yeah, you want to manage the 110 or your shore cord power. Basically, and the big misconception is if I've got my water heater on gas and I've got my refrigerator on gas, I am going to go through LP. The thing people don't consider is they have thermostats just like anything else. So once they achieve that temperature,
Yes.
they're going to shut down. And then they'll turn back on when they have to. So it's not a constant draw of LP. So you can go quite a while unless we're talking furnace. The furnace draws quite a bit.
Okay.
But yeah, you want to manage your 110 is what we call it. And there's easy ways to do that. They've got an inexpensive surge protector now.
Okay.
That actually tells you how many amps you're pulling. So you can kind of go through and turn things on, have somebody look, and you can see how close you get to 30 with different things. And then, you might find out that in the summer, I want to run my refrigerator on electric, water heater on gas, when I've got the AC going, and then everything is perfect. You know what kind of power you're pulling, what kind of amperage your camper's pulling. So something like that's kind of nice. But yeah, you just want to make sure, even as you approach that 30 amp, if you have a 30 amp camper, things start to get hot. And the heat kills everything. So you want to manage that. You want to stay as, under 30, but close to 30. So everything is operating as it should.
So it's more important to spend a little more on your propane in order to protect that
I think so, and again, I don't think you're gonna use near as much
All
as you
the
think you
time.
will. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah, the one thing we did find out is, the last camp out we were at, it got so cold that people weren't prepared for the amount of LP they were using on their camper, so we actually had to bring, I don't know, 20-something LP tanks back in a couple times because people were running out of LP because it's running constant.
Furnaces, yeah.
Furnaces really pull
Absolutely.
the propane.
Absolutely, and it also depends on how warm you want your camper. If you got it at 66 and you're using blankets, you know you're going to use less than 2, but a lot of people want to be comfortable, so it's all what you're used to. But again, you know, your refrigerator, it's going to kick on when it needs to. It's going to kick off when it's achieved that. So, you know, it's going to cycle and it's going to last a while unless you're using that furnace.
Any other questions?
Yeah, can you operate your hot water heater on electric and gas at the same time?
Yes, you can. Some people during shower time will flip them both on to try to help the water heater keep up while everybody's taking their shower or washing dishes, but you can do both at the same time. There's actually a separate thermostat for the gas side and the electric side, but they're both generally about 130 degrees.
And they both working in parallel with each other to keep it?
There might be a little variance. One might shut off a little quicker than the other, but they should be very close. And even some of the campers that have the pad controller, our command system, when you go to your water heater setting, you'll actually have a gas and electric setting. But just remember your electrical balance. And Keystone RV recommends on a 30 amp camper only running one major appliance, like your air conditioner or your water heater on electric. And don't forget fireplaces. A lot of people have fireplaces now.
Yeah.
But they claim by just running one of those at a time, it can save some of the headaches of tripping breakers and things like that.
And the other thing to consider, that's going to help it recover quicker, but of course you're not going to get any temperature difference because whichever one hits the thermostat limit, it's going to shut both systems off. So it's going to help it recover quicker, I would say, but that's about all you'll get out of it.
Does it hurt to do it like long term, like the whole camping trip? Because we've always turned them both on when we first set up. But lately we've been having them both on the whole time. That doesn't hurt anything?
Well, when you've got the water heater on electric, when the element kicks on, that's like 11.7 amps of your 30. And so if your AC's on, those are, they'll spike 17 or 18 and they'll settle down a little bit. But
On startup, they're gonna hit pretty hard. So those two items alone are getting you close to that 30 amp threshold. So you have to manage that. But again, the only advantage to that is a quicker recovery. So if you wanted to do it while you're showering, you know, that would be one thing. But I don't think I would do it all day. Just not necessary, especially when you're not using as much.
And of course, you know, with your camper showers, remember the little water saver button. And what we all learned for years and years, you know,
Yeah.
wet down, cut off. So, but
Remember the
makes
water,
it.
what is it?
The water saver on the handheld shower head.
Oh, I didn't even know they had it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shower.
You need to come to the how to take care of yourself seminar. Eric will be glad to show you how to take a shower, sir.
It'll be off that day, I think.
We've got a person watching live, Mike, who says he may have blown out his 6-gallon electric water heater element. How can I check that out?
The easiest way would be to turn the water heater on like normal usage and probe the 2 wires on the element to see if you have voltage going to it. If you have voltage going to it, the system is telling the element to work. And if it's not working, it's the element. If you have no voltage to it, you've got an issue before the element. Easiest way, I would think.
Correct.
Yeah, so just check the voltage at the 2 wires on the element itself. Be safe, of course. But if you have voltage to the element and it's not getting hot, it's the element. If you don't have voltage, it's a limit switch, a ECO or T-stat telling it not to come on.
And the elements, one easy test is, of course, make sure the breaker's off and disconnect the wires from it and do a simple continuity test. If you're not getting continuity, there's a break in the element and it would need to be replaced.
Another water heater question just popped up online while we're on the subject. Brian is asking, can you install a push button igniter on my water heater? I have a hard time lighting it, so I'm assuming he's got just a pilot light style.
There used to be kits, electronic kits that you could actually add to them, but I've not seen one added in quite some time, to be honest. If you're having an issue, there shouldn't be an issue with it lighting. I don't know if it's a gas valve issue or it really depends on what's happening. If it's lighting and then going right back out, it could be a thermocouple issue and the gas valve's not staying open. But if it's hard to light, there's some kind of other issue. There shouldn't be any reason for it to be hard to light.
The other thing to remember is there's 2 reset buttons in the water heater.
There is, but if you've got a pilot light one, there wouldn't be there. Those are only on your electronic ignition ones.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you're pulling your camper down the road and the last place you were camped at required air conditioning and you forgot to turn your air conditioner off, does that do any damage to the air conditioner itself while you're pulling it down the road?
If I'm understanding your question, you left your air conditioner on and then unhooked and then you went down the road and everything, is that what you're getting at? Yeah. And then when you plug back in, does it cause any issue? It's a pretty hard initial hit, but that's more generator type situation. If you had a generator, it's hard on the generator to do that and things. But
hurt anything if you just leave it on and forgot to use it?
No, I mean it's not recommended, but I can't imagine it would hurt. I mean, severely long term, it might weaken a capacitor or something along those lines. But
a lot of people, when we pull them back in the shop to work on them, you would be surprised how many of them, as soon as we plug in, the ACs are on.
Yeah, it seems again like motorhome issues. Anything with a transfer switch, stuff like that, it can be hard on. But typically, you won't find an issue if you've got just travel trailer or fifth wheel in that type of situation. Again, long term, it's not recommended, but I can't imagine what it would hurt, if you just accidentally did it every now and then.
Another question on the water heater. Okay, you got the 2 propane tanks and 1 propane tank runs out of gas. Is it set up to use out of the other propane tank?
As long as you've got that changeover valve in the correct position, it will. But the problem with doing that is you'll end up running out completely and not having a backup. So the way I would set it up is to pull off a 1 tank, and then you're going to run out and understand that you're out, and then you change over to the other tank and then fill your other one. If you've got it to where it'll pull off each and you don't realize it's already switched, you're going to run out at some point and not know it.
Okay, it was like you're time to go to bed, 10 o'clock, 9, whatever, and you think that you got enough gas in the tank, but you don't want to run out while you're sleeping, so you can put it on automatic switch over then. And does that work okay? I mean, work fine whenever a tank runs out of gas?
I think what he's asking is does it auto change? Does it change over when a tank empties to the other tank?
Yeah, which it will if you.
It will if you have that automatic changeover valve set in the correct spot. Yeah, there's you can turn that thing where it'll pull up a 1 or both or either one, and if you've got it in the right spot, you'll be fine as long as you don't run
But
out.
if it goes out in the night or something, you're not gonna burn anything up.
No, if it runs out of LP, you don't have anything to burn. No, I understand you mean electrically, yeah, everything will just shut down. Yeah.
Even on switchover, you'll have a little air in the line, won't you?
Yeah, you could, but most of your appliances have what they call a 3-try board in them. So even if that changes over and you've got an air pocket, it's going to try 3 times before it shuts down completely.
You can go to the stove or the cooktop, especially if you change the tank out or something. Light those valves and let them burn till they're nice and blue. You'll notice a lot of times, especially if you run out of gas and switched over, it takes a little bit to get all the air out. Especially like if your water heater is totally at the rear of the camper, you may have to cycle that water heater 2 or 3 times to get it to light.
Well, that happens the same way like if you're going down the road and you got your refrigerator on the gas. So it automatically switch over.
Yes, sir, it'll change over on its own as well.
Any other questions?
One thing to consider while we're talking about all these appliances and being plugged in, every one of those appliances have to have 12 volt too. So if you're not plugged in, if you're dry camping or if you got it running in the driveway and you're not plugged in, you're going to pull that battery down real quick because you've got gas valves and the boards that are operated by the 12 volts. So don't be surprised if your system starts to shut down. If you're dry camping or unhooked, even if you're on gas, it still needs that 12 volts. So if you don't have something replenishing that, it's going to stop eventually when it gets to probably 12 and a half, 11, when systems start shutting down. So keep that in mind.
Any other questions on that?
Extended warranty, I don't know if you guys are prepared for that. For the extended warranty, what all does that really cover after your regular warranty year?
We'll give this one to Ben. He's probably got the most experience on that. Ben can talk to you about that.
That is almost a loaded question. One major thing that does not cover is water or wood. So if you have any water damage or wood, trim coming off, seals.
Like your decal starting to peel off.
Most of the time they won't cover decals.
They will not cover
And
decals.
if you got the master wax, on the
The max guard, if you have the max guard,
yes.
they would come in above and beyond your normal service contract that you would have. And like Ben said, that is a loaded question. One thing you want to ask, or it's whatever you're willing to pay for and whatever you're buying. So there's different levels of those service contracts. Some might be appliances only, some might be appliances and tires. It's really whatever you and the finance department come up with, whatever kind of program that they have out there. But the thing to do is to read that thing, read the fine print and understand going in what you're buying. And you got to do that on everything anyway.
It's like, say the LED speaker goes out on your camper and doesn't play music anymore. Well, it could be the radio, it could be the speaker. Most of the time, if it is the radio, they'll replace it. Speaker, they will replace it. If something was to go bad and not work anymore due to something happens to it, they'll replace it.
The easiest way to explain that, Ben, I think, is if it's a mechanical breakdown.
The mechanical breakdown,
So
yes.
if the motor goes out in your furnace or a valve or a motor, an electronic component, things like that, mechanical breakdown things will be covered. On the Route 66 warranties, the way that they try to make it as non-confusing as possible. So basically, every mechanical thing is covered unless it specifically says that it's not, and there's very few things on that will specifically say they're not covered. But like he said, seals, water damage, that type of thing isn't mechanical stuff for sure.
Okay, your slides moving in and out. I would say the motors are covered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one thing to consider on service contracts, and this is from being behind the counter back there, if you have a refrigerator go out, a cooling unit on a refrigerator, you're talking a couple $1,000s to get that done. So these things, people might come in and get upset because they've got a $6 item that came off or something that's not covered, and you know, a piece of trim, they got to pay the $6 for the style, and then they got to pay a half-hour labor to do that. The service contracts and extended warranties are more for your refrigerator, your slider and motor, the mechanism. That's the
Your air
things that
conditioner.
really cost you, your AC. So I try to talk everybody into those. And I've never been an extended warranty guy until I started here. And you see what goes on behind the desk back there. I mean, there's a lot of times where it saves people, but there's also a lot of times where we neglect the maintenance on the camper, and we know deep down it really shouldn't be covered, but we want it to be. So that's when people get upset with things. But the first time you've got a refrigerator or something that you're going to have to pay for, and you've got that service contract, a refrigerator can actually cover the cost of the contract. I mean, it really can. So I always recommend them just for the high dollar items, you know, furnaces, any of that stuff it covers.
Okay, will it cover like the cables on your slide outs?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'll cover pretty much anything other than,
An adjustment.
an adjustment, yes.
Will not be covered.
Yeah, so like if your cables need adjusted, unfortunately, there's no failure, so we can't go against the contract and try and get that repaired. It has to fail. So before you bring it here, start cutting stuff or whatever you have to do
Hey.
to make that failure happen, and then we'll get that covered.
That's not the right answer.
I'm here to take care of you.
Question. I'm new to all this, and I've been reading a lot online about condensation in an RV. Can you talk for a few minutes about that? What causes it? How can you avoid it? Does it matter if you're in Florida versus in Idaho? Well, anything about condensation?
So one of the things that we have happened before is if you live in your unit, you're in it all the time, you've got the heat going, all your carbon dioxide that you're breathing out helps with that, making it condensate inside. That will put moisture on the walls, that will start to condensate off the wall. That being said, it does help having a dehumidifier or maybe a vent lid open every once in a while, getting some of that hot air out. I'm not saying cool down your entire camper,
Right.
but it does help having some air movement. Problem is you're in a confined area with no outside air movement. So all the air that is inside the camper keeps moving and moving. It does not go anywhere.
Imagine that glass that you got sitting on your nice wooden desk.
Yeah.
The ice cold beverage inside of it's going to make that condensate, and it's going to go on that wood, and what's going to happen on that wood? I mean, there's no real good fix for it other than a dehumidifier.
A dehumidifier, maybe open up a vent and let it air out for an hour if you're living in it.
But it's mostly caused from running the furnace smoke a long
Well, it's
time.
just temperature.
It's
Temperature.
if it's
Oh.
cold, if it's cold out,
Cold outside,
warm inside,
warm inside, it's going to form.
it's
Okay.
going to do that.
Okay.
Kind of like
So, I
a
mean, that is-
refrigerator, when you open a refrigerator door, especially in the
Yeah.
summertime, and it starts frosting every time you open up the door, a little
Yes.
bit more, a little bit more. Same effect with
So it's a matter of where you are, what your weather's like, whether you're running the furnace constantly or whatever.
Yes.
Just heat inside the trailer.
And it
It's
drastic.
just like your homes, you know, a lot of times, think of the toilet tank. You know, you're in
Yeah.
a warm house and that toilet tank starts sweating because of the cold water in the tank and stuff. It's going to show up when you got differences in temperatures.
Okay.
There's really not a whole lot of fixes for it.
And a drastic temperature change can cause that. Ours come from Elkhart, Indiana, and there's some times of the year where we have to dry them out.
Yeah.
I guess their temperature is colder up there. It's a 5.5 hour trip. The unit get here and we open it up to check it in, and it's sweating inside.
Okay.
which is just went through probably a 15, 20 degree temperature drop.
And speaking of the Florida and things down there,
Uh-huh.
the only thing I'd recommend if you're going to be down in Florida is maybe when you get back, depending on how long you're going to be there,
Uh-huh.
get under there and wash your frame and everything, get that salt air off of it, salt and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Something you might want to do.
Okay.
I know when the salt on the road, just like Eric was talking about them coming down from Elkhart, these things are covered with salt when they get here, and that's one of the first things we do is get rid of
Is
that,
clean
get it
that
off the
salt
jacks, get it off of the frame and everything, just to keep everything salt free. Yes, sir.
During winter, do you have to run a dehumidifier if you're doing cold storage?
I mean, if you ask me, it's always a good idea to run a dehumidifier in a camper, period. It doesn't hurt a thing. You're only going to get benefits from it. I mean, even just everything inside is going to be better if you run a dehumidifier.
How would you recommend running the drain line or draining the water from the dehumidifier?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The dehumidifier collects water. How do you recommend getting that out of the camper?
Unfortunately, you just do it like you do at your home if it's a portable one, you just got to empty it.
They do make, and Matt's more informed than what the.
Yeah, there's actually some units out that we're going to have here in the next, I don't know, probably 2 weeks. Before our new product seminar is coming up, they're pouches, and they're fairly large pouches, but you can actually microwave them. They're not throwaway. So you put them throughout your camper. They absorb. I don't know the time frame yet, but once they're saturated, you put them in the microwave, dry them out, and they're reusable. A lot of the damp rid and the products that are out there right now, they're toss away.
Yeah.
You know, so and they're very inexpensive, and they're different sizes. So hopefully we'll have some product in here that you can just do that with. You know, you lay it on in a bowl or something, so you're not going to tear anything. You know, it's not going to leak. But then you microwave them and go again with them.
Any other questions?
Yeah, on your air conditioner, you got your camper cooled down, and you were running it on high, and you want to put it on low, possibly draw less amperage that way. But anyway, when you put it on low, after a while, your air conditioner starts spitting.
And that's something that's been going on forever, and I don't understand why. If you ask me, they shouldn't have a low AC setting. The problem is when you put it on low, there's not enough movement over the coils, and your coils freeze. Then they start to thaw when it kicks off, and that's that dripping. That's that frozen coil up there dripping down. So we don't recommend anybody run low AC. Just to do it with your thermostat, or kick it on fan only, but isn't that pretty much the way? If you put it on low, 90% of these things are going to freeze up the coil.
Especially in hot temperatures.
Right.
The ACs in the summertime, we see them come in all the time. You know, they're made to do a 20-degree drop. So, you know, if it's 97 degrees outside, the inside of the camper, you're, 77 is what I would set my AC at. Well, I want 65. I mean, you can try it. It's going to work the AC to death, and if it is set on low in that setting, it will freeze up. The high setting will move more air across it and help out. But remember, your air conditioner can only do so much.
Yeah, humidity. Humidity is going to be the biggest factor in that thing freezing up when you've got it on low.
Say you got 2 air conditioners, and it's kind of real nice and cozy in there for the summertime, and you possibly turn one of the air conditioners off.
You should have a dual zone thermostat where you can kick the front or the rear off, yeah. If you've got 2 air conditioners, that just means you have too much money.
If you happen to be running off of 30 amps instead of 50, definitely only run one AC.
And one of the air conditioners may be a manual, the other one's an automatic.
See a lot of those in the bedrooms that get added on that are manual controls. Generally, the manual controls really don't have an auto setting, do they, man? The fan motor runs day and night on those.
And so, if both of the air conditioners are satisfied, then they don't really need to have any cooling.
Right.
Just leaving it.
Right.
Yeah. Even some of the newer models just have an auto setting for the heat and air. You just set the temperature you want the camper. It keeps itself at that temperature. It's more about a comfort thing. I know a lot of people at night in the summer, want the bedroom cool, so there's no sense cooling the rear of the coach at that time. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there, this kind of a generalized thing, somebody thought they were getting a good deal, maybe still have, bought a used coach and knew absolutely nothing about any of the things you've been talking about today. What kind of resources is available? You can take the manual out and read it all day long, and you still don't understand what they're talking about. It's like I had a little problem with mine. I've got my coach in there now. I think they got it lined out. But until 2 days ago, I did not know that everything ran off of the battery system or gas, even if you had it plugged into a 50 amp line.
Sure.
See, that's the type of basic thing that I don't know anything about. You're talking about running gas. I thought when you had that plugged into my 50 amp service, I thought everything was running off of that. So you're saying that furnace, refrigerator, and everything is running off of gas, even though it's plugged in?
It doesn't have to be. It really depends on the appliance. Your refrigerator generally will have a couple settings.
You got it on auto, or
Okay, if it's on auto,
yeah,
if you're not plugged in and have sufficient 12 volt, it's going to be on gas.
okay,
When you plug it in, it's going to automatically switch over to the shore power.
okay.
But that's really the only appliance that's going to do that.
That's the only thing.
Yeah, everything else you've got to tell it how to do it. So your water heater will typically be gas, and then if it is electric, it's going to have a switch on the inside or the outside to turn it on to electric.
I haven't ever even got that far.
Sure. Which
I wouldn't know how to turn the water heater on.
Okay. The internet is your friend if you have a computer at home, and
Yeah, I know, but that's still, I guess, I don't know.
One of the things we do here with everyone that we sell, new or used, we do what's called a walkthrough. A lot of dealerships do that also. Here we try to schedule an hour and a half with each customer. During that hour and a half, the truck gets set up with brake control, gets whatever it needs.
Yeah.
While that's going on, we deal with the customer, showing them their unit and how to use their unit. It's a good start.
well, we don't want you getting frustrated. You just bought this new camper, you're psyched up, you're ready to go camping, you get out there and you don't understand, again, why your air conditioner is not working, why this is not working, and a lot of those phone calls are something simple, very simple, and that's why that walkthrough is so important. We teach you how to use the camper before you ever leave, and you're not going to remember everything even in an hour and a half, so
Yeah.
we field calls all day long trying to help people through the little things.
Yeah.
And that's something you can call and get scheduled here. You can bring your camper here and we'll get you on the schedule. And
Normal labor rate or whatever, for
Uh-huh.
an hour and a half, a couple
yes,
hours.
sir.
Bring it
But
up.
it's very informative. I mean, it's down to everything,
That's
you know.
something that for me might be worthwhile doing.
Absolutely. Bring a notepad, or even, there's people that bring their tablets, their cell phones, and take video of certain things so they've got their.
Record it.
Speaking of phone services, we also have a text service. You can also text us if you have any questions. Also,
Yeah, I've got, things like, the entertainment system. I have a satellite dish, I have no idea how to use it. I have no idea how to hook it up. I think it's, with, Dish Network. But I don't know how to even go about getting started with that.
What year is it? Is it a
It's
travel trailer?
It's an older, Coachman.
Is it motorized?
Yeah, it's 2000, it's a diesel pusher.
Okay, so there's so many variations on those systems, and they've got powered antenna boosters and different things like that.
Right.
Do you have the control box or the switch box up there?
There's something up in the cabinet.
Okay, there's a ton of variations, and we've got a guy that's an expert in the systems that are a little bit older that can tell you everything about it. But again, it's and this sounds awful, and I don't mean to sound that way, but at the end of the day, this is a business to help you guys out. And time is money, so if we have to, but we'll be glad to schedule you in and go through anything you want to go through. And a lot of times, if Eric or myself or Ben can do it in the parking lot, we don't charge you a thing. We'll help you out, get something figured out. If it's within reason, we can spend an hour or 2 hours out there because we're letting our customers go. But we want you at the end of the day to get going and have some fun. So
Well, I eventually see myself upgrading to a new unit,
Mhm.
and one hand washes the other. And
Sure.
If I could feel like I'm treated real good up here and learning things, this is where I'm going to come to trade and upgrade.
Yeah.
So,
And see, one thing that we're both kind of talking about right here, it's cold right now. 20-degree nights, and it's going to get colder. Well, the service department only has so many technicians, so many bays, so many hours in the day. So if you call and you've got a furnace problem, a lot of times we're telling you take the 10 screws, unhook the line, unhook the cable, and bring it to us, and we will bench test it. We'll figure it out. We're going to get you, if there's any way possible, we're going to get you warm that night.
Yeah.
Even if there's no room in the shop to get you scheduled in that day. So we're trying to do everything we can to make sure you guys are happy and taken care of. It doesn't work always, but that's the point at the end of the day, is to make you smile and you get you going and fixed up.
Yes, it's a lot easier for me to get a furnace in if you bring me the furnace than it is for the whole camper.
And that was just an example, but that's one of them that happens all the time. We don't want you to freeze. A lot of people live in them. We don't want that guy going without heat that night. If you throw a space heater in one of those, space heaters can be, 10 to 16 amps on that 30 amp power supply that you got. We don't want that happening either. So we're going to absolutely do what we can for you to get you going.
The other thing on service is, I know I've had issues at remote locations, and I've sent in photo to you guys to see, so you can see what I was doing. You guys have been a real help in that area.
Thank you, sir. I mean, that's our goal. You're not going to come back if you're upset with something that happens here. If you're not treated fairly, you're not going to come back, and we want you back.
I have a question.
Yes.
I forgot to ask this during the electrical seminar.
I'm married.
Oh, okay. That was it.
I mean, I appreciate it, but yeah.
If I have solar panels, I think, and how does that fit into your electric propane system? What do the solar panels do?
You have a new Cherokee.
Yeah.
Correct. It has a 12-volt refrigerator in it also, I would assume.
I think so.
Most of them are the Cherokee brand, I think, is all that. With the 12-volt refrigerators coming out, they've started putting those panels on from the factory. That's to help with the refrigerator operation while you're traveling.
Oh.
Because the older style, we would switch from gas to electric, and your gas required 12 volts. These new refrigerators are straight up 12 volts, got a compressor, just like 120 volts.
That also helps keep the battery charged as it's sitting by itself.
The 12-volt battery.
The 12-volt battery, yes.
Correct.
Okay.
It helps it charge while it's sitting in the daytime when it's doing nothing. It'll keep that battery charged up and ready to go when you're ready to go.
Okay.
Eric, do those have battery disconnects?
They all have battery disconnects.
That's something to remember as well, though, since you're talking about that. If you have the solar system and you have activated the disconnect, meaning you've shut off the battery,
yes,
that solar panel's not going to charge anything for you.
If that red handle that you've got near your refrigerator or your converter or fuse box, if you can pull that out, it is not charging.
Okay.
If you put it in and turn, it is charging.
That's where there's a lot of confusion. When people turn that on, they think it's not charging and they shut it off and think it is charging, and
Yeah.
it gets kind of confusing. It's just terminology of the disconnect itself. But if it's activated, which means it's disconnected, you're not getting any of that power to anything. So you need to make sure
But
when
you
you're ready
always
to camp.
want your 12-volt charged. You don't ever want it to run out of juice.
Right, yeah, if your battery goes 0 volts or low voltage this time of year, battery's gonna freeze.
Oh,
It's
okay.
gonna bust.
Okay.
And then it won't be able to hold a charge any longer.
I still prefer the battery disconnect switch.
I do too.
We all use deep cycle marine batteries for a reason. They're meant to be sure they can
handle a charge and a discharge.
Yeah.
Now, if it's ever fully discharged, every time it's fully discharged, it's taking away a little bit of life.
Yeah.
But we're talking that much. What I suggest to everybody is none of these campers, even if we had a $100,000 fifth wheel in here, none of them have a smart charging system. So even if you're plugged in at home, it's going to charge the battery, but it's going to continually charge that battery, which means you've got to check the water in the battery. If the water boils out, it's going to be a bad situation. So what I would suggest is before you put the camper up, you've had it plugged in at your home for a week, you know that battery's good and charged, hit that disconnect that battery to where it's got a full charge and it's ready to go for you next time. And you're not sitting there running things constantly to keep that up. So
if those batteries don't have a draw on them, I mean, they sit in warehouses before we get them, and we get them 50 or 100 at a time. And of course, install new ones as we sell them. They can sit back there months, and you can still pull a meter on them, and they'll say 13.1, somewhere around that area. So if you disconnect the battery when it's not in use, to me, that is just solid. That is the best option at this point.
Actually, I just thought of an error that I made. The disconnect does not disconnect safety items. So even with that off, it's going to pull from your carbon monoxide detector and your LP detector.
And one way to tell if your disconnect is doing that is look at your LP detector. There'll be a green light. Turn your disconnect off. If that green light's still on, you know that the LP detector is still pulling power.
So
if somebody has installed one themselves or something, you may see that go off.
Yeah, that'll be like a little red or green switch on the front near the battery.
But you want those things to run all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
you do,
want
but
those.
you just need to expect your battery to be dead
Ah,
in so many days. If those things are pulling half an amp, you've got a 140 amp hour battery in 280 hours, your battery's going to be dead. So just understand that if you hit that disconnect and your lights are still on your detectors, it's going to be dead no matter what when you're ready to.
okay.
Yeah.
And that LP detector will give you another alert. When your battery gets to about 7 volts, somewhere in that area, your LP detector is going to start going on. You can walk through our storage facility right now, I guarantee you, and hear several of them. So that's another indicator.
The reason that does that is it's getting ready to say, hey, you're getting ready to lose this protection. Your battery's low enough that these detectors are not going to help you at all. So it's just kind of an alert, hey, you need to get something going because we can't control it.
It's like the smoke alarm in your house. Time to replace a 9-volt battery.
Yeah.
You talked about replacing tires and stuff like that, timeline, but you've never really talked about replacing batteries. I know it's different than cars and stuff like that, but.
When I started here,
Is one thing, you said something else about.
I wouldn't replace one till you need it.
Okay.
If it's in a motorized unit or your car, you want to jump in every 4 years or so, because in 4 years it's going to be bad. But if you've got a travel trailer or fifth wheel, don't replace it until you have to. There's no reason in buying a battery 6 months quicker than you need it just because of a time frame when you're giving up 6 months of that new battery. You don't buy one till you need it.
I got a question for you.
I've got a question on your disconnect. When you're running your refrigerator and you're going down the highway, is it best to use your disconnect on rather than have it off?
The battery needs to be on anytime you're pulling it or it's plugged in. The battery needs to be on. Your truck is going to charge the battery, or it's going to try to, while you're traveling, of course, through the 7-way. But it needs to be on. Yes, sir.
In the wintertime, when you're storing your camper and you've got everything shut off, you got your disconnect off, would it be a good idea to unhook the battery? Take it out maybe and put it in a
put it in the
place?
garage.
Yeah.
You know, that's for sure safety right there. I mean,
the best way to kill any kind of draw is pull the negative.
Right.
If you're not going to take it in the house to make sure there's no draw whatsoever, pull that negative cable.
Yeah.
After it's been charged.
Because
You want to make sure that it has been fully charged before you do it.
You answered my other question, because I was going to ask about the disconnect being off, if the solar panel would still charge the battery. Because I think you answered that when we got our camper, but I wasn't sure.
The solar panel will not charge the battery if the red handle or whatever your battery disconnect is off.
Yeah, that's what you said a while ago.
I have noticed some of the Cherokees out there on the lot with the solar panels on a cloudy day, just with a radio or something like that on it, with the size panel that was on it, and this was a wolf pup, you know, the battery was running about 7 volts. Some of the units now have bigger panels for that, and I think those 12-volt refrigerators, is it two batteries and a 120 watt panel will run that refrigerator indefinitely. But the factory only has one battery installed, so there's some options there, and I'm not sure that the panel is 120 watt. I'm not.
The one that's on there is not.
I didn't think so. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and the questions online, of course. Stay safe, and we'll see you at the next one.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How